Hey everyone, welcome back again. Today we're going to be going over a lot of things dealing with garden planning. February and March are a great time to plan and plot your garden, get things ready, think about what you did last year, what would you like to do this year, what do you need additional or different than what you had last year. So in today's video, we'll go over some specific garden planning, garden plotting, timing tools, a schedule of when to direct sow, plant in the ground, determine what seeds you want to buy. If you have some seeds left over from last year or maybe several years, then you kind of need to go through those and determine what should you discard versus what do you want to buy more of, or if there's a new plant that you want to try. Make a list of all of those new things that you want to try so that you can order seeds for those. And then lastly, we're going to go over some awesome gardening and homesteading, food preserving books that I have purchased over the years and found to be really helpful what we're trying to do here. All right, so let's get started. Now, there are a lot of ways to store seeds. So for example, I harvested seeds from a lot of the things that I planted last year, and I do that every year. That's the greatest way to ensure that you have some seeds for the next year. You can see which plants did well or not, and let's say take pumpkins for example, which ones formed the way they were supposed to, which ones got to the size that they were supposed to, which ones were healthiest, right? So then you can save your own seeds for that. So I have some of those. I also have some things that I bought last year, seeds that I wasn't able to plant because I got so sick right at the height of planting season last year. Seeds they're meant for year to year. So when you're buying from a seed company, right, and they're growing things as well to save seeds from and resell those, it's usually from season to season. That is the best way to get the healthiest plants. That's going to be the freshest seeds, of course. You can still use seeds though from 2 years ago, sometimes 3. After that, they're really not good. And what I mean by that is they just probably won't grow the plant. I've had that experience myself. If you look it up and read about it online, that's pretty accurate. They kind of expire at that point. If you do some, like I said, some crops, you can stretch it to the 3rd year, but if you have a seed packet that's 3, 4, 5 years old or beyond, they're probably just not going to grow anything. If you have done a little bit of gardening and you do have some seed packets saved, it would be a good idea to go through everything, see what you have, see if there's anything that you need to discard and order something new of. That being said, there are lots of ways to store seeds if you already have some. So if this is not your first year gardening, like I said, and you're not going out and buying everything brand new right now, and you have those seeds, seed packets, or if you are new to this and you're going, okay, well, what will I do next year if I have some extra seeds, or if I do decide to harvest my own seeds from the things that I successfully grow, and you want to know how to store those. There are lots of great ways to store those. There are lots of organized, cutesy ways to store those. I'm generally an organized person, not so much with my gardening supplies at the moment. Unfortunately, I just don't have a space that's dedicated to that in the house. Don't have a garden shed yet. That's one of those things on our list for this year. So hopefully we're going to do that so we can at least put some tools out there. I wouldn't store seeds out there for the cold winter, but all of my gardening gloves, any kind of fertilizers that I'm using, any kind of tools, any kind of anything, obviously the trellises and the larger things like that to grow plants on, they're just all over the property. We've got some things here in the house, we've got some things in the basement, we've got some things in the garage, and the garage is a mess for a lot of different reasons. And then we have some stuff we've just left in the garden. So unfortunately, things are all over the place. So that includes in the house, obviously my paperwork and my books, I can have those in a specific spot. And in my seeds, I'll show you how I store those. So you guys ready for this super sophisticated seed storage system? Say that 5 times fast. Here you go. This is what we've got. I will give you some tips though, some things I've learned and kind of figured out along the way. So usually when you buy seed packets, whether you're getting them at the store or ordering something online, they're gonna come in some kind of paper envelope like these. These are some really awesome, they're called strike green beans. They kind of grow like a low bush, and so they don't grow up tall and vine. A ton of these. I hope they're still good for this year because they gave us way too many, but there is an Amish greenhouse around here that sells some seeds and they give you far more than you could possibly use. So this is actually from 2 seasons ago, so this would be the 3rd season if I plant these again. I did save some seeds from the ones that I grew, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, You see how this is very much like a paper bag. This is glossy paper, but it's not glossy on the inside, but you get the idea. So one thing I've learned, not only is something like this really good for the purposes that it serves, which is obviously on the front, you're gonna have kind of maybe where it came from, tells that it's an heirloom seed, what is it, what kind, annual, approximate seed count, and then usually like a picture or a description of the item. On the back though, if you're new and you're not aware of this, it has some fantastic information about when and how to grow it, how to space it, but also how deep to plant it and maybe how much space from one plant to the next in the rows. So the back of your seed packet is critical, and that's, one reason I like to save the extras, and I'll usually just go like this and seal it over and just keep it in the packet. I don't have to try to remember and memorize all of that information. Obviously, like a flat paper packet is very useful for being able to put all of this helpful information. But something else I have learned, these are some seeds that I saved from some acorn squash out of the garden just this last year. So these are some of mine, and I had all these little plastic bags, I think for some craft or something, and I was just saving them and not using them. I was like, oh great, this will be great to store these in. But I've kind of realized and learned why you don't really want to store things in a plastic bag for the most part. And there was like a bit of a solution that I came up with for making sure that this would be more successful just for now, until I do get a better seed storage system. But I think the paper helps keep seeds drier, helps preserve them better. If there's any little bit of moisture, I'm assuming the paper must absorb that a teeny bit. So that's probably another great reason for using paper to store seeds in. So if you are collecting your own seeds and you're like, awesome, I'm gonna put them in plastic, or the other thing that I did that did not work, I have a bunch of little glass baby jars, or the lotion that I use comes in a glass jar with a lid, the face lotion, and they're adorable and I hate to throw them away. It's a beautiful glass jar. You could use it for something. So I saved a few of those to put my seeds in, and here's the problem. If something's airtight and it's plasticky, or the glass even, any little bit of moisture that might still be on these seeds, and then this whole little packet's gonna turn to mold and be completely disgusting and useless. I learned that the hard way with both of those options, and I know how to harvest and dry my seeds and then wait until they're completely dry to put them away. But I think in that instance, when I had that issue, it was because I had just done dishes, and yes, my hands were dry, but they were just, how your hands are still just a little bit, there's some moisture on them. So they weren't dripping wet by any means. They didn't even look wet. Just, you could feel that they're kind of damp. My hands were damp when I picked up the seeds and put them in the bag. So that's all it took, was that kind of tiny bit of moisture, and then I'm sealing it tight in a plastic bag, right? Or sealing it with a glass jar and lid with no airflow. And I think, even these, it looks like, well, yeah, these are sealed too. And if you've looked at seed packets at all, you understand. But I think it's still just different with the, when it's paper. What I did though, I harvested my seeds in the fall, and then they were dry. I let them dry for about a week. And then I'm like, okay, now we need to put them away, put them in something safe, right? I tried this approach this year that I did with this bag, and then I would check it every few days just to see, like, are they still dry, loose? They're doing good in there, are they not doing good, are they developing mold? And it seemed to work. And all I did, you can't see it yet, I can barely see it sitting here, but I literally just folded the bag and I took the scissors and I clipped it a little bit, just so that there's a little bit of airflow in here. That seems to have worked, just so that I can keep using these for now and not have to buy something. It would be really cool to have like those old-fashioned mail slots, or even just like the old-fashioned recipe box style, where like you have slotted, whatever, and then you can file through and have them alphabetically organized, etc. There's a lot of options for how you store your seeds. You can do that, but also this works just fine. Just keeping in mind like the actual container that you're storing them in. Okay, that being said, the next thing that you need to do is actually plot out your garden. So that's extremely helpful. If you're just getting started and you're only growing like 3 crops, and you're gonna do that in a very small patch of land, or you're gonna do that in containers, there's really not a lot of planning that you need to do. But if you're trying to plan a lot of food, because you want to eat off of it during the late summer and fall as it's ready, and you want to preserve it for the winter and try to keep as much as you can for the next season, obviously, so you're growing a lot, quantity per plant and a lot of different types of plants, you do want to write that down and have some kind of plan. It will get very complicated quickly, it'll get overwhelming, and it won't be nearly as fun. It won't be as rewarding either if you're just kind of like chaotic with it and it's all over the place and you don't know what's growing where, etc. The other thing is, again, I'm organized, I'm really into this, I'm very focused, I enjoy doing this, right? So you think, I'll remember what I planted where. You know, and then even if I don't, as things start to come up out of the ground, I know what their leaves look like, and that's true. That's absolutely true. However, it doesn't work either, because then you might have, okay, you're like, okay, I planted this here, I planted this here, I planted this here, and I have all these rows, right? Well, then if one or two crops don't come up and you're like, I don't remember what I put there. What didn't grow? Did I buy a bad seed, or was it something I did, or did that plant needed something that my soil didn't have? What was the plant that didn't do well? Okay, so that's really important to know too. So I do plot that out. Now, again, on the, you know, getting fancy with your organization side of things, there are several, I looked into them when I first started gardening, but there are several great ways to plot your garden on paper, actual garden planners that you can buy. There's some electronic computer versions that you can download. There's some free ones, there's some paid ones, there's different styles of those. So if you want to plot it out on the computer, if you want to have cute little, you know, pictures of heads of lettuce and rows of tomatoes, click and drag kind of thing, you can do that. You can also just on Amazon or other places, probably at garden centers, they have an actual book that's kind of like the traditional day planner, where you can open it and look, and I planted XYZ in this spot on this date, here's the harvest, etc. You can do that. But guess what else to go along with the way that I store my seeds? This is my garden planogram, guys. It's just 2 pieces of cardstock paper taped together. This is from last year, and as you can see, I think I only got to about this far. I didn't even get all the way down because I got so sick, and it's not even, you know, finished because there was no way that I could finish it. I'm going to use the same one this year, and I just kind of wanted to show you how I plotted some things out. And I think on this one, at least this year, if I decide to put something different, I'm just going to white out something and then white out the word anyway, and then write a different word over it or near it. This is more than sufficient. You do not have to get super fancy if you don't want to. On the other hand, if you'd like to organize things differently when you're writing down this information, there are a lot of options online, like I said, to purchase or just use like a free app system for doing that. I'm really not a techie person. I know I've started a YouTube channel. I'm making videos and editing them. That's a shocker to you and me both. I don't love a lot of technology. Obviously, I appreciate certain things like medical advances and such, but I'm not real big on needing to use a lot of technology if we just really don't need to. And I think, you know, everyone understands that. Some people really enjoy the latest new tech product of any kind that comes out, and that's like an area of interest for them. I have zero interest in it. Any kind of technology that I know or have had to use, it's usually because of my job. I do have a phone and computer job. I am in the corporate world. So obviously there are a ton of different types of systems that I had to learn for work, and that's probably a good thing because technology is everywhere these days and you can't really avoid it. So it's good that I should know how to use a few of those things, but I wouldn't care if I didn't have any of those things at my disposal, especially for something like this. Again, you can if you want to. You also do not need to at all do something techy and fancy to keep track of all this stuff. The other thing that you want to do to keep track, and I kind of found that you don't want to overwhelm this. This is meant to represent the actual shape, scale of my garden and where I want the crops to be. You do not want to try and cram on there a bunch of information about when you should plant something versus when you did actually plant it and when is that harvest date, okay? So this is another set of details you should keep track of. And so I just made my own little grid paper to write all of that down. So again, what I have on here is I have the plant, the date, well, technically over here first, the suggested plant date for your zone, because remember, if we're talking about just here in the US or anywhere else in the world, really, we all reside in different planting zones, and goes by the weather. So what time of year should you plant what item? Keeping away from those frost dates. For example, this is a green leaf lettuce that I planted. The suggested plant date for my region was April 21st. Still be about the same this year. It's not going to change too much from year to year. And then I have what date did I actually plant it? Because life. Things get busy, you get sidetracked. Maybe April 1st is a Tuesday and you're like, I'm working, nothing's getting planted on a Tuesday. So maybe I'll plant that the weekend before or the weekend after. That gives me an idea of when it's okay, when it's a good time to plant my item. So then I tracked what date did I actually end up planting it, and then days to mature, when to harvest. So again, that's helpful because you're like, well, I know what it looks like or what it should look like. Yes and no. A lot of plants that grow under the ground, you can guess, but you don't really know if that's ready or not. If you're a very experienced gardener, yeah, you can probably tell by a lot of things, by the way the leaves look above the ground. And yes, there's a lot of indicators like that, but I'll give you an example. Carrots is a great example. Everyone who has tried to grow carrots can attest to this. But you'll get that floofy green top, and you're like, awesome. And it's the end of the summer season. It's probably ready. These carrots are probably ready. They look like they would be ready. Okay, so the next thing you do is you just scrape away a little bit of the dirt, the surface level of the ground, and you're like, oh, awesome, the top of the carrot looks this big around. It's clearly ready. And then you pull it out and the carrot's only this big. And that may be, some varieties of carrots are shorter like that. It could just mean that you pulled it too early or it wasn't the right soil, because carrots are very picky about the type of soil they have, and part of that is they need to be able to burrow down and kind of the roots go a little bit out from the carrot, obviously, so they need to have very loose aerated soil. So if your soil just got too compacted with walking around it, too much rain really compacting it down, or watering your garden, over watering or something, and just the type of soil that you have could be heavy and stick together more, right? For some other reason, right? So just looking at the crop from the top of the ground isn't always a good indicator. Same with potatoes. I know what... Okay, next I wanted to go over some resources that go along with everything that we just talked about. Where should I plant crops? What should go next to each other? What should not go next to each other? Some other resources on the timing of that. And then just some other garden and homesteading related books that I have found very helpful. I've been wanting to share that with you guys for a long time, and it just hasn't been one of the videos that I've been able to do. So we're going to kind of lump that together today with that garden planning aspect. So this I found really helpful. This is from Living Traditions Homestead. It's one of my favorite homesteading channels and one that I've learned a whole lot from. You can probably still go get this from them. This was the 2023 edition. I don't know if they've done an updated one. It says it's the seed starting cheat sheets. I think I paid $1 or maybe $2 for this, and then they just email it to you and then you download it. But basically they did all the research and put in all of the effort helping you determine that. So what exactly is in here? Ready potatoes look like, and in fact you kind of wait, just like with garlic, you wait until their leaves look like they're dying or dead already. You can harvest those in varying different degrees at that time. Well, I've harvested too late, I've harvested too early, etc. So keeping track of, what does the seed packet or the internet or whatever resource you're using, what does it say? Like, does it take 180 days for potatoes? Does it take 160 days for carrots? What have you? That information will be there for you, and you want to keep that as a guide, because then each day, late summer into the fall, we're talking about August, September, even into October, some things are still growing really well then you can go, okay, this is when I should expect it to, and then maybe I do some of those things like dig around the top of the soil, or I planted, 50 potato plants last year, so just dig one of them up and see how it's doing. Now, not every plant performs the same, even though it might be the same potato and you planted them all on the same day, but that will still give you a great indicator. Keeping this timeline guide and then go dig up a plant just to check on it and see how it's doing. So this is more if you want to start seeds indoors, or you have a greenhouse or somewhere that's, a garage that you're able to climate control and put some grow lights in. You want to start things early, maybe you start seeds at the beginning of March or even the end of February, depending on where you live, so that you can plant started plants right in the ground as soon as it's warm enough to do that. Some people do that for a couple of reasons. Growing in large quantities, you want food to be ready at several different stages throughout the summer and fall, fresh food. You do it for that reason, so that, hey, I have some certain types of plants are ready as early as April. And then May, June, July, August, September, maybe even October, I still have fresh food that I'm eating on, food that not going to preserve. Another reason is if you're selling at a farmer's market, which they did for a time, and they shared that with us through their channel. So this was an extremely helpful resource for that. So it kind of goes over seed starts, number of weeks before planting. Of course, it has some of that same information that a seed packet would have. Seed depth, days to germination, which means when is it going to come out of seed and sprout? When can I expect it to start coming up out of the ground? They even have little helpful things on here like, does it require a heat mat or not? Again, this is if you're starting seeds indoors. Special notes. Some things require soaking the seeds before you plant them. One note here says needs light to germinate. And this column here is like every plant that you can think of. So it's several pages, the many different types of plants that anyone might want to grow. It's a very comprehensive guide. For $1 or $2, this is invaluable if you're going to do that. I bought this more as for a future endeavor. The information in here, even though it says 2023, it's not really going to expire. You can still get a lot of great information out of this guide. That's something that when I do have a greenhouse in the future, I will probably utilize much more. The next thing, I think I just found it somewhere online. It says from seed to harvest in page 50. It might even be out of one of my books. But look for something like this. It's Buddy System for Plants, companion planting. Now, I think some people have the wrong definition of companion planting or what it means, but it's not that one plant helps other plants grow better. It's just that for pest control, it's huge. For example, planting tomato plants next to basil plants, etc. There's a lot of examples like that with fruit and vegetable planting. So this is kind of that. And the other thing is it tells you kind of like what not to plant it next to. That's a great, so it does both of those. Garden friends and garden adversaries. This one has it broken down by that. And the reasons for that are like, you can plant certain things next to each other, and then if it attracts a certain pest, if that plant attracts a certain pest, it might also affect the other one. It has to do with nutrient stealing. Like, you wouldn't put two heavy feeders together, as we call them, like potatoes and pumpkins. While they're friendly in the garden, I believe, together, you may not want to put them right next to each other because they're both going to be taking up, they're bigger plants, they're heavier plants. You're going to be taking a lot of nutrients out of the soil, and you might not want to put those right next to each other. Next, we have Rodale's Ultimate Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening. The edition that I got looks like this. It was one of the most updated ones a few years ago. Amazon, just go look it up. This is exactly what it looks like and what it says it is. A fabulous encyclopedia. Every fruit and vegetable that you can imagine will be in here. And then it tells some things that you need to know about that fruit and vegetable. Look it up. I think it's alphabetical by category. So this is melon, for example. It gives you a ton of great information about melons. It's broken down by types of melons, planting the melons, growing guidelines, problems that come up, and then harvesting. So this, and here's the next page. We have milkweed, million bells, mint, monorata, and then it has a reference here to see different page. This is great. It'll talk about disease too, and it's just great to have all of that in one place, because this is not something that sit down and read at night in bed and then try to remember all of the information. This is absolutely just a referral book for when something comes up, or if you're going to plant something new that you're not familiar with and you need to know all of the things about how that plant behaves in the garden, what to expect with it, and what kind of pests or diseases could affect that plant. We'll give you that. And then it also has just a lot of other, gardening tips and gardening techniques and information that you didn't even think that you would need to know, but it's all here to refer to as needed. Sometimes there's a few pictures along the way too to kind of support what it's talking about. Love this. The next one is the Vegetable Gardener's Bible. Similar to this, but also has some different features to it. This is by Edward C. Smith. I believe he has a couple of different versions or editions of this too, but this is the one that I have. And for example, this one is great. It covers more of like gardening techniques, shows you the visuals. Everything in here is color photograph. This page says a gallery of garden rogues. It goes over pests. It goes over all kinds of things. See, this one's also alphabetical. So again, you can kind of go look by plant and glean some really good information. Not be explaining this super well, but this book and that Ultimate Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening are two very different books, really. They're going to have some overlapping information, Both of these I have used a lot and appreciate and really like. And part of that is if you're going to grow on the scale that we've been trying to grow, the way I started was by looking everything up on the internet, one crop at a time. And while yes, you can do that, you start with like, okay, well, what kind of soil and water does asparagus need? And then you go, okay, when do I plant it? Then you're searching a few days later, okay, when is it ready? Like, you know, how does that work? Or like with asparagus, you learn, I think it's the first 2 years really that you plant it. You're just going to get the brushy weeds that grow up, and it's not until like the second or third year that you really get good asparagus. You will get nothing in the first year for sure, except for the weeds. They kind of need to be mounded and hilled up with the dirt, you know, for drainage purposes. There's all of these things. And you're learning this like literally piecemeal, bit by bit, if you're just looking it up on the internet. So books like this and the encyclopedia over here are fantastic because then it's all at your fingertips as needed. If you don't have great access to the internet on a regular basis, Google, your phone is, you know, whatever, computer, whatever it is, and you just don't have that or you just don't want to do it that way, it's helpful to not be constantly searching for one little piece of information at a time and kind of have it feel like it's all over the place in your head, or when you're trying to think about it, you can refer to these books and the information is all there. Next thing, of course, this is more on the homesteading, less on the garden side of things. It's a book called To Basics. It's the 4th edition, updated and revised, of course. Complete Guide to Traditional Survival Skills. This book is wonderful. So we've gotten some ideas out of here so far, but if we absolutely needed to all of a sudden, and that's kind of why I grabbed this book, if suddenly, you know, you're without power for an extended period of time, you don't have fuel anymore, you can't pay people to come and do things for you, you were working before so you didn't have the time to learn the skills to do these things, this is going to be your guidebook for that if things go that far downhill. So if all of a sudden you are at home all the time and there isn't anything else for you to do except for try to survive, this is great. It really goes over all kinds of things, you know, making soap, wood cutting, wood storage, several different gardening systems, how to build just about anything. Let's see what is on this. Modern windmills. Yes, amazing, right? Building your own whatever. Let's see what else have I looked at in here. Oh, there's some recipes in here for talking about this page that I just randomly opened to. Traditional cider press, and then, you know, improvised press, soft drinks and juices, underground residences and backyard cookery, active solar movers, complex but convenient, passive systems, the soft side of solar heating. You know, it goes over everything. So learning how to do your own everything. Energy from wood, water, wind, and sun. So it shows you a lot of like homesteading systems and not just introduces it to you. This book shows you how to actually build them yourself. And obviously with something like this, yeah, you might still need some manufactured materials, but I found when I looked through it, here you go, there's some stuff on wood heat, clearly. I found that, you know, this is like, oh yeah, you could do this with a lot of what you already have around your house if you absolutely had to and you had the time to want to try to make some of this stuff yourself. Or it's like, okay, well, I maybe don't have that piece of machinery, and if I didn't have electricity to use, I can't run that, but it will give you an idea of how else to do something, right? There's water systems in here. There's all kinds of amazing things. So this one is good if you're like, you want to put in a hand pump well, which use YouTube to figure that kind of stuff out right now. But again, if you didn't have access to something like that, but you needed to know, you needed to have, you know, some kind of reference guide that you could refer to from time to time as you want to do some kind of project like that or off-grid type of things, this seems to be amazing. Now, on to food preserving. So a couple of books that I thought were really great. Now, I haven't done, I'm really good at freezing things. I'll be honest, I really haven't canned a whole lot yet. I've done you can can things and then just put the cans in your refrigerator. So I've done a little bit of that. I haven't done shelf-stable canning yet. Something I would like to do this year and learn how to do. There's the, you know, two major different styles of, you know, water bath and pressure canning. And you can do those for different types of fruits, vegetables, or meats, of course. I would like to do that. But Ball has been around forever. They are definitely kind of the known go-to, a great resource for that. So this is the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving, and then it includes all the recipes too. So This is going to include what you're supposed to put in the jar, right? And how to do it. Gives you the recipe. It also is going to go over some techniques doing things in the canning realm. But yeah, it's essentially like a recipe book for canned items. So this is a good one. Another one that I've researched, and I also haven't really, again, I don't have the time right now to do a lot of the preserving other than freezing. I've gotten good at that, doing it the right way, and it's really quick and easy. So I do freeze a lot of veggies. But this one is called Food Preserving Without Freezing or Canning. So another option, if you couldn't freeze stuff, you don't have a freezer, again, back to the no electricity thing, or have the heat source to get the boiling water, etc., whatever it is. Traditional techniques using salt, oil, sugar, alcohol, vinegar, drying something out and hanging it up, cold storage, and lactic fermentation. So I've certainly not tried any of these yet. I feel like it would be good to master canning first and then move on to something like this. You know, this is how our ancestors would have done it when they didn't have those electricity freezers, things like that. So that's really cool. I haven't actually done anything out of this book, but I can promise you I've read through it quite a bit. The things in here sound pretty awesome. Like they would be good to do. So I do recommend getting this kind of book too, just to have it. To end today's video, we could check on the babies. Move this out of the way without scaring them and making them run all over the place. So they're at least 2 weeks old right now. We bought them 2 weeks ago on the weekend, and it's Sunday right now, so this is what they look like. Shedding their old feathers, getting new ones growing in. One of these yellow ones, you can't really tell from this angle, but that one right there, she seemed to be, I guess, a runt. The other ones were growing much faster than her. You can kind of tell there with one of the other yellow ones. That's a good comparison, and even the black one that's next to her. We're a little worried about her at first, and I mean, we'll still keep an eye on her, but that first week and a half, the other ones were growing quite a bit, and she just literally wasn't changing size, and then just in the last few days, she really started to grow. She also seemed more sleepy all the time, eyes kind of half open, not as wide and bright. When the other ones would get startled, she would run, but not as quite keeping up. But she seems to be doing much better now. Thanks again for coming along with me today. I hope the information in this video was helpful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video and/or my channel. That's what helps us grow here. Thanks, and have a good day, everybody.